Hello, beautiful people. My name is Marika Gare, and this is the Inspiration Trilogy, a platform for women across the globe to connect together in a village of women to really share wisdom and support and advice. So today we have the amazing guest, Lisa Brandis, who's the founder and director of Intuitive Reiki International, a Reiki Master and a spiritual channeler. And I understand you've now an author of your own book. So welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Yes, I am. Just released my new book today, actually. The timing's great.
That's so exciting. So this is your first book. So you delve a little bit into, I guess, your journey of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I really wanted to create a to share my story. I've got 20 years experience working with Reiki, and it was really just for those people that have heard of Reiki and don't really know what it is or whether it's something that they'd want to learn. And the story pretty much chronicles my journey, and I think I didn't know what it kind of evolved as I was writing. So I started off with, kind of a bit of an overall plan, and then it just morphed into whatever it wanted to become. So
yeah, but
I think the term is teaching memoir is what it is. So
yeah. Oh, beautiful. So we can touch base a little bit on that later. So for everybody out there who may not have heard of you, tell us a little bit in the short version from the book about you and your journey. So, and how you got to, where you are.
Yeah, well, my interest in Reiki really came as quite a surprise. So I, in my early years, worked as Captain Starlight. So I had the best role of being, being an entertainer, and I was an actor, so I got the role purely through synchronicity. A friend told me that the job was available, and I went and met the state manager, and we hit it off straight away. And it was just like, got the job, and I remember I'm an empath. So I remember my mum saying to me at the beginning, "Oh, are you sure this is a good job for you, Lisa? Because it can be very tough." And I was, kind of a little hesitant, but the actual experience of working at Starlight was life-changing in so many ways. And there was some difficulties within the role. Obviously, when kids got sick and having to deal with things that on a day-to-day basis that usually we don't think about until we have a kind of trauma or until we lose someone close to us. So I guess the role in Starlight had me asking all the big questions. What happens when we die? Where do we go? Is there a God? And
so this is from the children, was it?
Yeah, well, just I'm in that environment where I'm seeing the most beautiful kids, gorgeous families. I kind of have this very black and white thinking where it's like good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. But here I was in an environment thinking that this just isn't fair, these families didn't deserve to go through this kind of trauma, and just trying to put some greater understanding to what I was experiencing at quite a young age. So I think a lot of people tend to look for deeper meaning when they lose someone or they go through grief, and then they're looking for kind of understanding to heal and to kind of understand what they're going through. So
and with severe health illnesses as well, that's another one that you really kind of delve into that deeper part of yourself.
And I ended up with work burnout. So there was just stress and pushing down emotions, not dealing with things properly, not taking care of myself. And I ended up with insomnia and just high stress. And it came to a head, as it always does. You can only do that for so long until you hit the ground. The kind of breakdown for me happened when I was in Sydney, and one of my aunties had a friend that was staying with her, and I was a basket case. Like by the time I'd gotten there, and it was funny because do you remember the show All Saints?
I
because I was an actor as well, I'd been given a role, a really short role on All Saints, and I was going to meet Georgie Parker, and I was so excited. But my agent hadn't actually got me to sign a contract. So everything was prepped, and I was due to go to Channel 7 or 9, one of the stations, the following day. And it was tapped on to the end of a conference in Sydney. And they rang me and said, oh, look, we've overbooked. We won't need you to come in. And I was absolutely devastated. I was like, but I was going to meet Georgia Parker. I totally lost my shit. And sorry for swearing.
That's all right.
And yeah, that was, you know, it's always something that just that kind of puts you over the edge. And I was crying and quite distraught, but probably more than was necessary for the event I was experiencing, you know, a little bit of a...
But like you said, it's like the cherry on top from everything else that's been building up.
Yeah, and it opened that door for the floodgates. And my auntie had a friend staying with her at the same time, and she was a Reiki master, and so she said, would you like me to give you Reiki? And I'm like, had never heard of it, didn't know what it was. And at that point I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll try anything. And my first experience of Reiki was just sitting in my auntie's lounge room on a chair like this. And this beautiful woman put her hands on my shoulders, and I instantly felt like I was held. And the way I describe it, because sometimes when we have a spiritual experience, we try and find words to describe what that felt like. And it was if someone had opened up taps in the soles of my feet and all the stress drained out of my body.
Wow.
I had this massive release of all the tension and all the stress and all the anxiety and worry. And then in its place came this beautiful sense of, I don't know, unconditional love. That's the only way I can describe it. And I felt this level of peace straight away. And then what I noticed was at the beginning was the physical relief. So I went to bed that night feeling great and just feeling this sense of peace, and then woke up in the morning. And for me, that was, slept all night. I couldn't believe, you know, I'd suffered, insomnia for 8 months, you know, at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to kind of wake up and just be feeling great. And then I went on a little holiday with that woman and followed her around and asked her for Reiki every day. I was like, oh, more. And then when I came back to Perth, there was one of my, the volunteer coordinator introduced me to the next volunteer. And would you believe, I said, oh, tell me about yourself. And she's like, oh, I'm a Reiki practitioner. And I couldn't believe it, Marika, because it was not a household name like it is now. So it was unusual. So then, I grabbed her hand and ran upstairs and said, show me. And that was the beginning of the journey. And then I went on and did the training with my master, did level 1, and then 3 months later, level 2. It took about 6 years before I became a Reiki master.
Okay.
And, that was because I had babies. I met my husband and had children. So I kind of put everything on hold while I became a mother and went through that journey. And then that's kind of, I'm 20 years on now and still loving it and still evolving with Reiki. So that's a short story.
Wow, it's such a beautiful story, and it's really the universe showing you on those early days what your path was in this life, and to be able to help others. So I think that's really wonderful. And so you're also a spiritual channeler. So when and how did that develop in your life?
Well, like with everything, I think when you understand that it's a possibility and it's actually a thing that can happen, you know, back in the early days of Reiki healing, I had done training in psychic mediumship, back with for about 5 years, sitting in a closed circle, just training and learning how to connect to the spirit world. And I went to a mediumship conference, and one of the teachers there, who's an incredible psychic medium, he flew over from the UK, he actually did a live trance demonstration. And there was about 100 mediums. Do you know who Tony Stockwell is? You heard of him?
Yep.
Him. So he's just amazing. And lucky enough to be sitting in the front row. And what I didn't realize is that he opened up the energy and brought his guide through, and I could feel his essence and his presence as if I was literally there in this different dimension. And I had tears streaming down my face just with pure joy, because I was just, to me, I said to him afterwards, I said, like, because I was like a kid in a lolly shop, you know, I was just like on, and I was taking in everything that was happening, watching, like waiting for that moment where I could see his guide kind of left his body, because there was an absolute distinction between Tony and Tony's energy and how he speaks and his mannerisms, which
Wow.
I'm accustomed to know over the whole, conference, to then see when his guide stepped in and then watch when his guide stepped out and Tony was back. And
Wow.
privately, I said, where did you go? What happened? Like, where was your consciousness? And he said, the best way to describe it is like I'm a pinpoint at the back of the room. So I surrender to my guide, but I'm aware and connected still. So it's like he wasn't totally disengaged, or what we call unconscious channel. He was a conscious channel, but had surrendered to the point where he wasn't influencing his guide. And it was out of this world. Like,
I find that, I think it's absolutely fascinating. I've never seen a live trance. I've heard about it, but I think it's just...
you see it and you feel it, Marika, and it's the essence and the energy just ripples out across you, and the relevance and the power in the words and the language. It's timeless wisdom. So to be able to tap into that became the decision back then. I'm like, I want to do that. And then, like, from that day forth, it's like I went to my mediumship teacher, teach me channeling. She's like, that's not what I do, Lisa. So my mediumship teacher was and is one of the world's best mediums.
Yeah.
No one was teaching, and back then we couldn't have access to Tony because it was in the UK, and we didn't have Zoom, and we didn't have all the things we have now. So it was a long process, a long, slow process of learning directly from my own guides, because when there's and of course, watching people like Esther Hicks, I hated washing and housework. So anytime I had to fold washing, I would be learning by putting on, Esther Hicks and watching and learning. And so for me, it was just a slow unfolding over the last 10 years. So with my own ability to channel, and then now I teach others how to channel as well. So around the country, and I've got some people over in the USA as well that I'm learning more, that are learning how to channel. So that's my
wow, that's beautiful. And so you teach channeling and Reiki, but you also provide sessions for people still as well, don't you? Is that right?
Not as often as I used to. I do have availability, but not a lot. It's mainly through the classes. So people can come and learn Reiki and do a workshop with me and do the training. And there are some availability for one-on-one sessions, but it's getting, my time is just becoming between at the moment.
Yeah. So for someone looking at getting an intuitive Reiki session or wanting to understand a bit more, how would you explain it? Do you combine Reiki and your channeling, and how does it all kind of fit together and work?
You absolutely nailed it. It is literally, the best way to describe it is, so you can understand traditionally Reiki is a hands-on healing modality. So I always practice and teach it hands-on. It's mostly seen as a passive experience in terms of spiritual healing, where the client will come, we'll have a quick chat, they'll lay on the massage table, and then the practitioner or master would run energy, and then they'll have a little chat, and afterwards they'll leave. So for me, initially, it was a very relaxing, calming process that works on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. And then quite often the body then is activated by the Reiki and then starts to accelerate the person's healing, which comes from within. So we all heal our own bodies. No healer heals us. So we heal ourselves. But we to help activate the healing within. So that's what a traditional Reiki session is. Then I also, like I said, I went and I was interested in, as soon as the spiritual door was opened, which for me happened when I was attuned to Reiki. So an attunement process is passed down from master to student, and it's a sacred ceremony that opens a connection, if we go back to the olden days when we would dial in on a radio station and pick up frequency, say 92.9, then we'd get that sound and the music. Well, we're attuned to pick up the Reiki frequency in a similar way.
Okay.
So then on the other side, I was a psychic medium, so I was doing readings. So I was connecting with the spirit world. Spiritual mediumship is communicating with those that have passed, and bringing messages to, to the sitter. So for me, it made total sense to combine the two. It took a while to do it because I was kind of told that you can't. So back then it's like, no, Reiki is Reiki and mediumship is mediumship, and the two should not meet. And I was getting angels coming in, I'm getting guides, I'm getting channeling, and I'm just, every time I was working in this way, I kept feeling like I was doing it wrong. I was like, and yet anytime I laid my hands on someone and opened up into that energy, Reiki wanted to talk through me. So
yeah,
I got to the point where I stopped denying how I naturally was guided to work, and when I kind of came out of the spiritual closet, I remember this big day. I had all this expectation on putting out the term, I'm intuitive Reiki, like I do intuitive Reiki. And I remember it was on Facebook, and I put it on my Facebook page expecting like people to shut me down and tell me, no, you can't do that, you naughty girl. And it didn't happen, Marika. It was the opposite. I was inundated with people saying, oh, that's what I do and I want that, and how do you do that? And so my teaching then took on a whole new kind of energy, I guess, in that once I'd given myself permission to combine the two modalities and blend it,
yeah.
then the beginning of Intuitive Reiki, and what would then become Intuitive Reiki International. So
yeah, it's such a unique offering, and I love that you blend the two together, and it just makes perfect sense.
that's
Yeah.
what I think, because the healing allows the person to integrate a reading. Like, I just, as a case point example, I was speaking at a festival, and I had two of my masters doing Reiki sessions during the day, and I was just there to talk about the workshops. And there was this beautiful lady that had just had a reading, and then she came and she sat down, and one of my healers was giving her Reiki. And then a few minutes into it, I looked over and I could see she had tears streaming down her face, and she was just kind of covering her face. And I walked over and just said, is everything okay? And she started, talking, and we were both just helping. My master was running energy, and I was just helping and chatting to her, which is, Intuitive Reiki is just, your heart knows what to say.
Yeah.
The heart knows how to help. And what had happened is she'd had a reading, and it had opened up an old wound of grief that she hadn't quite processed, and then she'd kind of been sent out. And that to me is that will have the spiritual wisdom come through, and maybe the reading might open up something that needs to be healed, and then the Reiki allows us to talk to them and to help them to kind of integrate it.
Yeah, and heal right there and process it right there and then, rather than taking it away. And yeah.
Do it on your own, and clearly if they had the ability to figure that out on their own, they would have done it, right? Right? We can't see our own stuff. I love this analogy that it's like, what's the matter? Well, you got a hand on the face, seriously? And it's like, oh, okay, like it's that total perspective. We don't know when it's that close to us that we.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need a loving person to hold space. Yeah, so that's how it's, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, so I have a passion in understanding the mind and how it works for us, and how it works against us at times. So I'll draw the modalities in a session. So to me, just terming it Intuitive Reiki just covers, it's like a blanket term. It covers what I do. And if I channel for a client, I'll always check if it's what they're open to. So not everyone, is ready for a channeled reading.
Because you're kind of that middle ground between the message and what they're ready for, and making that decision.
Well, I was very worried about it in the early years. I was so panicked that I would freak someone out, because channeling's a bit weird, let's be honest. And funny enough, all I wanted to do when I was a kid was fit in and be popular. So here I am choosing the weirdest modality ever. So I had that concern, and so I would always check, whether clients were open to it. But then I found that when I stopped doing that and really developed trust with Anya, my guide, over the years, I now know that she just doesn't come through. I've said, look, the door's open whenever you want to come through. If you have a message that's in the highest good for the client to hear, and you know, then Anya will come through, and she has a way of just seamlessly blending with me, passing on messages when it's needed. And other times, you know, they're not often, but occasionally there's times when, you know, I'm called to just hold space and run energy, and that's perfect too. So it's you know, I think we're all guided to the way in which we work. And for me, it's I think I was always a speaker. I was always being in trouble as a kid for talking too much. And, you know, nothing's changed.
Now you're bringing your gifts to the greater stage, and that's what I love about it. And it's the great thing that we can do in this day and age as well is do things via Zoom and branch out internationally and still connect with people and share on a greater level. So it's sorry, keep going.
It's amazing. Like you know, for years I used to think online training was a bit substandard, and, you know, quite often I just saw it as a really great addition to reading a book. So a book is great and you get information, but it's so different to an in-class experience. But then, of course, I had my own centre. I was running workshops. I think I had about 90 students in different workshops when COVID hit, and I had a lease. So, and then we were told we can't do any hands-on, and we weren't categorised. Reiki wasn't categorised as an essential service, obviously. So my business was stalled to a halt instantly, and I had to pivot. So I had no choice. It was the most stressful time in my life. And I had to figure out a way, and the answer was taking it online. And Anya just kept saying, my guide Anya, I kept saying, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And she's just like, love knows no bounds. I'm like, but you can't attune online. You can't, like, all my resistance. And she just kept saying the same line, love knows no bounds, love knows no bounds. And she was right, you know, she was right.
Yeah, because it's about tuning into that realm and the wisdom. And so it doesn't really matter if you're in person or not. I mean, it could potentially be, I guess, stronger, but it's still the same connection. So
well, it is. Yeah. You know, we've known for years in the Reiki system that we can do distant healing. So I do find it funny even today that some of the associations still don't recognise online. I've got cover with IICT. They're amazing. They do. I at the time I had my centre next. I've closed it now because I was doing so much online. I'm working from home, but at the time I was running the workshops online, and I set up a little studio in my clinic. And I put my business next door to accountants and lawyers, because I'm like, at that stage in my career, I was like, I'm not hiding who I am. I'm professional, and I'm putting myself right next to accountants and lawyers. And there was a lawyer next door, and she was a barrister. So she basically would go to court, and I was complaining one day that that I was being stopped by these associations. And she's like, I can do court on Zoom. So here, she said, that doesn't make any sense. She's just like, why can't you teach your classes? If I can go to court, someone can be trialed and you know, convicted potentially. This does, and you know, universities were using Zoom anyway. They're still a bit behind the eight ball with it. Hopefully they'll get on board.
Yeah, look, I'm sure things will change soon, and it's just you can get your gifts out there on a greater platform. So for those who may be on their path towards intuition, whatever stage, everyone's at different stages. You know, if someone's looking at starting, what would you suggest to start off that journey?
Probably the first step now is to read my book. I'm going to do a shameless plug. Read Intuitive Reiki International. So this is a book. This outlines what Reiki is and how it will help you. But it's not a how-to book. It's a memoir. So the how-to is come and do the workshop. So if what you've read inspires you, or if you just have heard about energy healing and want to know how it can help you, then it's a 2-day workshop, not a huge investment at all. So it's a really quick. I always say the best way to know if something is right for you is to get in and try it. Take action. Do it, give it a go, and you'll soon know if it's not for you. You know, most students that learn Reiki and go on, you know, begin on the level 1 journey, want to keep going. So there's a couple of levels within the Reiki system, Reiki 1, Reiki 2, then Reiki Master. And then after that, quite often those students that want to know more about the intuitive side. And I do teach the intuition throughout all of my training because it's my super passion. So
yeah.
fold it into all of the Reiki training. But then they'll go on and they'll want to know more about how do I channel and how do I really trust my intuition and how can I help it to make quicker business decisions and help to kind of trust that inner knowing when we're, you know how we know when things aren't right,
Yeah.
relationships or
we don't always listen. Sometimes we need to be slapped in the face. I know I've had to be a couple of times. I'm stubborn. But yeah, you learn to kind of really listen to it a bit more. And so when you do that kind of thing, do you help people connect with their spirit guides when they get up to that level as well and open up that sort of...
we're all, every human being's intuitive. We've all got this innate, ability to tap into a greater perspective. And, in hypnotherapy, they just called it the superconscious, okay? Or the unconscious. So from a medical standpoint, they still believe it exists. They just put language around it. In the spiritual woo-woo world, we call it, spirit guides and universe and so, and goddess and God and...
Yeah. So do you believe there's more than one guide? You have one main guide and there's others?
Oh, yeah, I've worked with multiple guides. And Anya, who has given me a singular name, she actually represents a group consciousness. So she isn't like Abraham is a group consciousness with a singular name. Anya's the same. She's Pleiadian. So they come from a frequency that is easier. Anya's all about being able to communicate in a way that humans can understand her easily so that they can and take the information and the wisdom she shares, to process it and make changes in their life. So yes, we do have one guide that stays with us for all of our life. So we'll have a guide. We'll have animal guides that come in. Changeover of guides where I just got to a certain stage in my life where that's when Anya came in, and then I work with the archangels all the time. I go through periods where I'll call in Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel, or I'll call in my healing Reiki guides, and then Anya's always there, so she's kind of my first port of call. I had dog Passover, and Bronson for a while was like a gatekeeper guide. He was like he was a blue healer, and he was in spirit. I'd go in and he telepathically came through in a reading that I had. And so there's so much.
And that's sort of the way my beliefs as well, and my journey from what I've experienced. When you have sort of several guides, and I've got one main guide as well, and you just grow and develop through that journey. And I'm sort of starting to move up a little bit more, but I'd be really interested in doing one of your Reiki workshops and developing that is something that I've always been interested in and always wanted to do, but now I'm making that decision to do more training within myself. And I know there's many others out there who will also be interested. So what's the best way to reach out to you and find out some more or book something?
I've got there's the book, or I've also got a webinar that you can jump onto. So that's a good way. I kind of put the information into a webinar forum so people can watch it and join in and learn about Reiki and the benefits and how it can help them, because I think once we understand what it is, then it's easier to make that decision to jump in and join a course. And now that I have the training, you can do it. If some people work FIFO or just can't, or have demands with family that they can't take a whole weekend out, or if we work very full on in the week, it's hard to then dedicate a whole weekend knowing you've got to be back at work at 9 a.m. on Monday. So those people can do the course in their own time, so they can move through the course information, and then we have a live component to that. So so you can sit in your bed and do the learning by watching the video training. And that's actually what I've done is I've taken, over the 2 years with COVID, I grabbed the best workshop sessions and put them into the course, so that you're actually hearing students and seeing their examples of what I'm teaching so that you can then tap it. So rather than just me talking like a talking head on the camera, makes it a bit more dynamic.
Yeah, I love that you've got that different flexibility as well, because I'm a sole parent, so finding time for a whole weekend or anything like that, it's often challenging. So you take what time you can when you can, and it just makes it so much easier. So that's a really great offering. So what we'll do for everybody, we'll also put all your links to your website, your bio and contact details and everything down below. So look, thank you so much for talking to us today. I just love the conversation. I could talk to you for ages.
I know. Thank you, Marika. I've been listening to your podcast too, and I love it. You're just so natural with people, and you bring out the best in them. So thank you. And anytime we get to talk about this, the spiritual side, it just it's so meaningful in people's lives when they get
it really is.
Yeah.
And I love that it's becoming more mainstream. Everybody's kind of getting into their intuitive awareness, and it's beautiful to see. So
it is important, isn't it, that I think we take the weirdness out of it. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, I think it's weird that we're not in tune with our intuition. Like, I believe now that, and I used to say years ago, wouldn't it be great if we got to a time where people are like, what? Don't connect with your intuition?
Yeah, because you know what? Thousands of years ago, women were celebrated because of their gifts and their intuition and being in touch with, the higher realms and the earth and things like that. And for, now we've kind of lost all that over the centuries, but it's coming back again, and it's beautiful to see, and hopefully we can get back to where we were.
It's a feminine energy, isn't it, that we're moving into that flow state.
We're a bit of a patriarchal society. We've gone too masculine and feeling like we need to prove ourselves by being more masculine, and we don't, because we're not. We're feminine, and it's such a beautiful thing. So, I love that we're bringing that, opening that again for everybody. And
it's so interesting, because I noticed you say something earlier where, and so many of us women do it. So I got a slap in the face, or I got to kick up the butt, But the truth is, spirituality, when we work with our guides, they love us into surrender. They love us into our knowing. They love us into our light and our expression and our natural beauty that we all have within. And it's once we get on this path, it's such a relief to not be going all the time or hustling like, Breathing is about slowing down and just being in presence with another human being, connecting.
Being our natural feminine selves.
It does feel natural, and it does feel like we've almost deviated from this natural presence and this natural way of interacting with others and connecting with others. More, and I think that was school. It was all knocked out of us as soon as we were told not to daydream and to focus, and we're all punished if we, got too creative, right?
And you're also told, you can't follow your dreams. That's a ridiculous idea. You need to follow, do what's safe. Don't, go against the grain and all that kind of stuff. So you're right. Like, when we're younger, we've got this beautiful spirit, and we're so, you try anything and you dream big, and we encourage our children to do that. And then it kind of goes on a completely different path as we age. And then it's, just learning to come back to that. So
back to that childlike innocence and just have fun.
Be audacious in what you want and just go for it. Oh, look, thanks again for today. Like I said, I love our conversations. I'm sure our listeners would have got a lot out of our conversation today. So for everyone out there, make sure you subscribe. We've got some great episodes coming up as well, and we will chat to you soon. So thanks, Lisa. Bye, everyone.
Thanks again. Bye.